When my 11-year-old grandson pushed me down the stairs, I didn't cry out. I didn't even scream. I just stared into his eyes as the world tilted backward, and I realized he wanted me to fall. And in that instant, before my back struck the first stair, before my wrist snapped under my weight, I knew the truth I had been avoiding for far too long. I was alone. Alone in a house filled with family. My name is Margaret Lawson. I'm 74 years old. A retired librarian, a widow of 12 years, a mother and a grandmother. I've always believed in the quiet strength of books and the power of patience. But no novel ever prepared me for the role I'd end up playing in my own home. After my husband Paul passed, the house felt like it echoed with silence. Our big old Victorian in southern New Hampshire, full of creaky floors, tall windows, and memories etched into every room, was far too large for one woman. So when my son Eric asked if his family could move in just until they got back on their feet, I didn't hesitate. That was 5 years ago. At first, it felt comforting to have the noise of life again. Their son Landon was 6 then, bright-eyed, energetic, endlessly curious. But over time, something shifted. The curiosity turned to cruelty. He broke my mother's china set, one piece at a time. He tore pages from a rare book I'd tucked away. I once caught him twisting the wing of a baby bird in the yard. When I brought it up, I was met with indulgent shrugs. "He's a boy," Tracy said, pouring herself another glass of Chardonnay. "Boys break things. You're being dramatic." Eric would just sigh, always the mediator, never the protector. "Mom, I know you mean well, but you worry too much. He's just spirited." Spirited. That's what they called it when he began coming into my room uninvited, when jewelry went missing, when I found my medication bottle empty but untouched by me. I tried to express concern, to suggest boundaries, therapy, but each time I was silenced with patronizing smiles or tense silence. And then came the stairs. That night, I'd made a cup of chamomile tea and was slowly carrying it to my bedroom. My knees don't work like they used to, and each step is deliberate. I didn't hear him coming, but I felt his presence. I turned, and there he was, standing still at the top landing. No words, just eyes full of something I still can't name. He stepped forward, gave one sharp push, and I fell. The pain in my wrist was instant, but not as sharp as the chill in my heart. Eric rushed in from the kitchen. Tracy followed, arms crossed. I managed to gasp. "Landon pushed me." They exchanged glances, and then Tracy laughed. "Oh, Margaret," she said. "He said you tripped. Don't be so senile." That night, lying in the ER with my arm in a cast, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself one question. How did I let it come to this? But deep down, I already knew. I had spent years making room for their lives. Now they were trying to erase mine. This isn't just my story. It might be someone else's too. If this touches you, please like, share, and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe. Your voice matters here. After the fall, I started seeing my home differently. Not as a sanctuary, but as a stage, and I was the fading actor being pushed off set. The house that Paul and I built a life in, room by room, was no longer mine in the way it once was. I had invited family in with the best intentions. Now they were preparing to shut the door behind me. I began noticing things, little shifts, a photograph out of place, my jewelry box slightly ajar, important tax documents I kept in a labeled folder now tucked inside the wrong drawer. My medications weren't disappearing exactly, but they weren't where I left them either. Then came the brochures. They started showing up like weeds, glossy pamphlets for assisted living facilities. One on my nightstand, another left casually by the kettle, a third peeking out from under the day's newspaper. I'd confront Tracy and she'd just tilt her head and say, "Oh, you probably just picked it up by mistake, Margaret. You've been misplacing a lot lately." I hadn't misplaced anything. But it was clear they were laying groundwork. They wanted me out and they wanted control. Of the house, yes, but also something far more valuable. My late husband Paul was a planner. Before he passed, he'd opened a college fund for Landon. He wanted to ensure his grandson's education was secure, no matter what happened to the family. By the time of Paul's death, the fund had grown to over $400,000 with careful investments. And I, Margaret, the librarian, the mother, the afterthought, was the sole trustee. At the time, I never thought that kind of detail mattered. Now I realized it was the only thing keeping me standing in their eyes. One morning, I overheard Tracy on the phone in the kitchen while I sipped tea on the stairs above. She laughed softly and said, "No, she's not lucid anymore. It won't be long. Once she's declared incompetent, we can finally restructure the assets." They weren't even pretending anymore. I felt a cold resolve settle inside me, stronger than any fear. I wasn't going to wait for them to erase me. That afternoon, I called Joanne, my oldest friend. We've known each other since we both worked at the public library downtown, back when card catalogs still mattered. Joanne was sharp, practical, and fiercely loyal. She also had a nephew in private security. The next day, she came by with a small shopping bag that looked like it held a few thrift store trinkets. Inside were discreet surveillance tools, a picture frame, a decorative clock, and a ceramic bird for the mantel. Each one contained a tiny camera. We placed them quietly throughout the house. The next morning, I watched the first footage on Joanne's secure tablet. I saw Landon slip into my bedroom at dawn and open my jewelry box with the precision of someone who had done it many times. He pocketed a pair of pearl earrings, my wedding gift from Paul. Later that day, the camera caught Tracy holding those same earrings up to the light and saying, "Not bad. I'll post them tonight." Eric didn't steal, not directly. His betrayal came in words, measured, casual, cruel. One evening, I told him I felt like I was forgetting things more often. I wanted his advice. He smiled gently and said, "You've always had a great memory, Mom, but it happens at your age. Let's not stress you with too many responsibilities anymore." That night, I cried for the first time since my fall, not because of the theft, not even because of the lies, but because my own son had begun rehearsing a eulogy for my mind while I was still very much alive. I knew I needed help beyond Joanne. Through a senior advocacy group she found, I met Ms. Caroline Vega, a social worker who specialized in elder rights. She listened, really listened. Then she introduced me to attorney Henry Bloom, who looked like he'd stepped out of a courtroom drama and had dedicated the last 30 years of his life to protecting elders from exploitation. Henry helped me do 3 things: secure my finances quietly without alerting my family, document every incident with precision and legal clarity, establish the Silver Path Foundation, a nonprofit offering scholarships to bullied children and older adults seeking to return to education. The next step was strategy. Caroline called it strategic compliance. I called it acting. I started misplacing my keys on purpose. I asked Eric to repeat things he'd just told me. I stared blankly when Tracy mentioned a holiday. I let them believe what they wanted so badly to believe, that I was slipping. Because when people think they're winning, they get sloppy. And when they get sloppy, the truth walks right through the door. The funny thing about pretending to lose control is that it gives you more of it than ever before. In the weeks after I started my forgetful phase, Eric and Tracy began circling like vultures over a fading meal. They spoke slower around me, louder, as if confusion also meant hearing loss. I played the part well, pausing mid-sentence, calling Landon by the wrong name, mixing up the days of the week. It wasn't difficult. I'd spent years fading into the background of my own life. Now I was just leaning into the role they had written for me. Then came the ask. One morning over breakfast, Tracy placed a folder beside my toast. "Just a few papers, Margaret. It's time we made things a little easier on everyone," she said sweetly. Eric added, "It's just power of attorney, in case something happens, for your protection." I blinked, looked down at the folder, then looked up with a smile so calm it frightened even me. "Oh, of course," I said. "Let me read it when I've had my tea." They relaxed, thought the battle was over, but it was only beginning. Later that afternoon, I executed what Henry and I called the catalyst. I left a doctored bank statement on my desk, suggesting a large transfer had been made to a personal offshore account. Then I packed a small overnight bag and left for what they believed was a routine therapy appointment. In reality, I sat in Henry Bloom's oak-paneled office and signed the most liberating papers of my life, the full, irrevocable transfer of Landon's $400,000 college fund into the Silver Path Foundation. It was done, legal, permanent. That money would now go toward helping kids like Landon, except one still young enough to change, and toward older adults like me trying to reclaim their dignity. The next morning, the house was quieter than usual. That kind of quiet that hums with tension. When I entered the kitchen, Tracy was already there, her face pale and tight. "Margaret," she said carefully, "did you make any large withdrawals recently from the college fund?" "I think I may have," I replied, sipping my tea. "I moved it somewhere safe, For education. For whom? She hissed. For those who still believe in learning, I said simply. Not just taking. She slammed her cup down. You had no right. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. It was never your money. It was a promise built on trust. You broke the trust. The money went to those who still have a future and respect it. I packed my things quietly that evening. A few clothes, my wedding photo, the first edition of a book Paul had given me on our anniversary. I left a single note on my bedroom pillow. I need space. Please don't contact me. I never looked back. By noon the next day, Henry had sent the official letter. A 60-day notice to vacate my home, backed by surveillance evidence of elder manipulation, financial coercion, and emotional neglect. They were trespassing in what was legally and ethically mine, but I wasn't done. I'd also gathered enough proof to contact Eric's employer. Over the years, he had presented parts of my academic writing as his own in several consulting projects. Quietly, discreetly, I mailed documentation to the ethics board at his firm. Tracy wasn't spared either. Footage of her pawning stolen jewelry surfaced through anonymous local tips. Her real estate license was quietly suspended as an investigation opened. And Landon? After the footage of him submerging his class hamster in my bathroom sink surfaced, his school required a full psychological evaluation as a condition of returning. The word conduct disorder began appearing in quiet conversations behind closed doors. I watched it all unfold from a safe distance. My new apartment was modest but peaceful. It sat in a sunlit corner of a senior cooperative in a neighboring town, arranged through Caroline and Joanne. There were neighbors who waved. There was a courtyard with a maple tree I could sit under. There was quiet, but this time, the kind I chose. And there was purpose. I began working full-time with the Silver Path Foundation. Caroline helped identify local women who had suffered financial betrayal in their families. Joanne joined the board. Henry became our legal advisor. I hosted small workshops on estate clarity and boundary setting. We awarded our first 2 scholarships, one to a bullied teen who dreamed of becoming a teacher, and another to a 62-year-old woman who returned to school for a social work degree. Then came the call I hadn't expected. Mrs. Lawson, the voice said, I'm Professor Emily Chen from the Department of Social Ethics at Concord University. We've been studying elder justice cases, and your story, well, it's powerful. Would you be open to speaking with our graduate students? I paused, then smiled. I think I would. That fall, I stood in front of a room full of young women and men, not as a victim, but as a woman who had taken her life back. Dignity, I began, is not something anyone can grant you, and if someone tries to take it from you, you have every right to rise. 6 months later, my house no longer felt like a battlefield. I had walked through every room, repainted each wall, and replaced every curtain with ones I chose, soft blues, earthy creams. It was no longer the home where I was dismissed, diminished, or quietly erased. It was mine, entirely. The garden had come back to life too. The roses bloomed brighter that spring. Maybe they knew what had changed. The Silver Path Foundation had grown beyond what I ever imagined. We'd supported 15 students so far, each one a story, each one a spark. One of them, a young boy named Eli, reminded me so much of Landon it made my chest ache. But Eli had support, structure, love, the kind of help that changes the trajectory of a life. In April, I stood on a community center stage to accept a local service award. For transforming personal pain into lasting impact, the citation read. I smiled as the audience clapped, but inside, I felt something deeper. Peace. Then Eric wrote to me. He said he was in therapy, that he and Tracy had divorced, that he had primary custody of Landon now, and was trying, truly trying, to be better. His words didn't fix everything, but they acknowledged what had happened. That mattered. Not long after, a letter came from Landon. It was short. No emotion, but full of uncomfortable honesty. His therapist had helped him write it. He owned what he did, the pushing, the lies, the manipulation. He didn't ask for forgiveness, just space to try again. I agreed to meet under supervision. He read an accountability statement, every word stiff and awkward, but true. When he finished, he looked at me, unsure of what came next. You hurt me, I said, my voice steady. But what you do next matters more than what you've done. He nodded, quietly. You may one day qualify for a scholarship, I added. Not because you're my grandson, but because you earned it. Months later, I spoke to a room of graduate students studying elder autonomy. I stood straight, voice strong. I once believed aging meant disappearing, but I learned that dignity doesn't fade with time, it sharpens. Boundaries are not cruelty, they are protection. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is saying no more. If this story resonates with you, don't stay silent. Leave a comment, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Real Her Stories. Your story matters too.